for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can type them into the chat box to the right of your screen, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. There is a menu there. You can either share your questions with all the attendees or send them to the organizers only. Our presenter today is Adam Weinroth. He's a marketing executive and the chief marketing officer of eRelevance Corporation, a company that helps aesthetic practices drive more repeat business from existing patients. And he's going to be sharing some case studies and talking with you about how you can generate more repeat business in your practice or med spa. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. Very glad to be here. Let's go ahead and get started. So today, as a reminder, what we're going to talk about is how your existing patients, not just new patients, but existing patients, can drive a huge share of your practice's revenue. So as Inga said, I'm Adam Weinroth. I'm Chief Marketing Officer of eRelevance. eRelevance helps aesthetic practices across the country, several hundred of them, with maximizing this opportunity. So we've learned a lot over the last several years, and I'm going to share quite a bit about what we've learned. So first of all, it's really a hidden opportunity, and I'll start with sort of a question, which is, what is your most valuable asset? So if you think about that for a second, you might think about your equipment. So you may have a lot of really expensive lasers, or maybe you have a premium location that's tough to beat. Your team and your employees obviously are a huge part of your business. Your own expertise, you're an expert in your field, and in some cases you may have even built a brand, a local brand, or maybe even a regional or national brand around your practice. But what we see is that patients are really the most valuable asset. All those other things are very valuable and play a role, but in order to grow and to have your practice thrive, it really comes down to how well you're serving patients and the role that they're playing in bringing you revenue. So let's talk about that a little bit. First, if you have only 250 patients, if you're doing things the right way, you can build to a multi-million-dollar aesthetic practice. Also, what we see is that in ideal situations, 80% of business, the money that you're ringing at the register, is coming from existing patients. It doesn't have to be all about finding new people out there to grow your business. That's a big misperception that we've seen, and it's led practices to do things that might cause them to waste or not get the results that they're actually looking for. The other thing about serving your patients more and bringing them in for more repeat business is that you're having them put more of their care in your hands. You're building a stronger relationship with them, and when that's happening, they're going to be much more likely to refer other people to you. So they are also a key ingredient in helping you find new patients that then become patients that you can generate repeat business from. So these are all very important reasons. There are many more reasons why patients are so important in what you're doing, but these are just a few that are worth highlighting. So let's talk about the difference between advertising and patient marketing. If you think about how you can generate more business for your practice, in the most simplistic terms, you can divide it into two categories. One is advertising to find new patients, and so that's done through traditional and digital methods, many of which you're probably very familiar with. The problem with that is that it's really hit or miss. It's often very expensive, especially if you break it down to cost per new patient. It's very hard to measure the results consistently across everything that you're doing, and it typically has a very low conversion rate because it's hard to find people who are in market for what you do, and so you're having to get your message in front of a lot of people. You're having to cast a very wide net and not necessarily netting a ton of people who are interested or qualified in what it is that you offer. So that's finding new patients. Then there's patient marketing, and this is marketing to your existing patients and driving more repeat business from the people who already know you. The problem with that so far has been The tactics around that have been very limited to things like email blasting, which is pretty ineffective. Um, as I mentioned, 60 to, all the way up to 80% of your business should be coming from repeat business, but often it doesn't. And so there's a problem with patient marketing, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. First, I just want to show you what I'm talking about in terms of 80% of your business being able to come from, or more, being able to come from your existing patients. So if you think about, the east-west axis being the number of clients that you have. If you have under 500, obviously you've got to build your business a little bit more, and so you can spend more money. That's the north-south axis here. More money on advertising and building your reputation in the community to get folks in for that first time. But as you start to accumulate patients, you want to start driving more of that business from repeat visits. And so that's what this is trying to show. It's conceptual, but at the tail end of this, once you have over 10,000 patients in your database, you can be getting as much as even 90% of well, actually spending about 90% of your marketing on existing patients, as opposed to 10 on finding new people. So that's just an important framework for thinking about it. And let's talk about some of the problems with patient marketing that exist today. One of the things I mentioned specifically was email blasting. And there's a reason why that's happening and why it's being used still and not delivering great results. First of all, a lot of times you're having someone in the office do it, and that might be you, or it might be someone on your staff. That staff often lacks the time and the expertise to actually do it well. And so in many cases, it's just unrealistic for practices to do email in a really effective way, or to do more than just shotgun email blasting. Or you may recognize that you don't have the expertise or the time in-house, and maybe you've outsourced that to a consultant or even an agency. The problem with that is that a lot of times that's cost prohibitive for consultants to do more than just the basics, like sending emails on your behalf or other very basic things. They're also pretty slow on turnaround because they're taking time, trying to apply best practices what they can. And, they're also pretty expensive compared to doing it yourself. The other issue with email is that when you're just blasting out emails, the communication that's coming across is very often not relevant. And so if it's not relevant, then a lot of people are going to see that as spam. And so you could be turning patients away, getting them to literally unsubscribe from your emails so that you don't have a chance to get in front of them again. So that's an important issue. And then you also have just, from the get-go, very limited reach with email blasting. So on average, the open rate, the percentage of people who open emails from businesses is about 20%. So what's happening with that other 80% of your patients? So there's a lot of reasons here why this legacy approach of email blasting is something that you should really be questioning if you're still doing it as it was being done in the 90s. And that's something to really to take note of and to think about what are the modern marketing standards that should really be applied here. I want to talk a little bit about the expertise piece because I mentioned that earlier. Just think about it for a second. You've got this person who's a practice manager and she's got the skills of QuickBooks and practice management and patient scheduling and different attributes of electronic record handling, checking in people, checking out people, records management, a lot of the practice management and administrative duties that are needed to run a high quality, effective practice. And those are critical for delivering the best possible care and having a great experience when patients come to your office or your clinic. On the right here, you've got, this is actually someone who's on our team here, Michael Cohen, who runs our delivery team. And, he's a career marketer. So he's got skills like lead generation and Adobe Creative Suite and Photoshop and Illustrator. He knows everything that there is to know about marketing analytics, how to execute certain types of campaigns, how to publish marketing content, and using various marketing automation tools. And so his stripes are all about marketing. And so the question here is, who's your marketing expert? And the way that I put it is like, would you want to have an electrician doing your plumbing, or vice versa? And so that's why a lot of businesses sometimes go towards a consultant, because they recognize that. But as I talked about earlier, there are some drawbacks from using consultants, and some limitations that you'll ultimately need to confront. Let's talk about relevant communication as well. So as I mentioned with email blasting, it's not very personalized, and it's very often not reaching who you want it to reach. And so if you think about different groups of patients, so think about males over the age of 35 who might have an interest in body contouring. It would be great to know that, and it would be great to get that, whatever the offer or promotion or message is, to that group of people that's relevant and personalized to those characteristics. You might have females over 40 who have an interest in wrinkle reduction. So wouldn't it be better to get specific messages, specific imagery, specific offers, and a specific tone to people who fall within that group? Maybe you want to let your whole practice know about something, and it is relevant truly to all people, such as that you're offering a new service, or that you're hosting an event that's open to everybody. And so the point of all this is that you want to strive to be sending specific messages, specific offers to specific groups of people. And there's research that shows that sending out relevant communication increases the effect and the result and the revenue 18-fold over just mass communication, sending everything to everybody. So this stuff is really important, and it changes the actual results that you'll see in your marketing efforts. And it's not just about targeting the right groups of people, it's also making sure that the messages and how those messages are packaged and presented are tailored to those groups as well. And so if you've got something that is, hey, here's a general procedure that we offer, or an injectable, or whatever it might be, we've got special offers and we've got great results. This is not very targeted, it's not very personalized to someone. It's good that it has an image of someone, and maybe someone can relate to that, but if you're sending that out or promoting it to your entire database of patients, are they really going to respond to it? Is it something that will resonate with them? And so a lot of people will see this as spam if it's not relevant, and that's the big issue. There are techniques that are very important in terms of doing things that are gender specific. Or maybe targeting an even more specific audience that may have particular needs that you want to address. And the offer, the message, the positioning, the imagery, all those things should be catering to that select audience and the need that you're trying to touch on. Also, content could be educational. And this is an area where the more educated and engaged you can get your patients to be, the better relationship you're going to have with them, the more you can expect them to trust you, and when they have the opportunity and the need, to be back in your office. So getting educational content about the right topics to the right people is also a very important ingredient in all this. I want to also talk about the limited reach of email. So if you think about email blasts reaching 20% of your patients, how do you break past that? And one of the trends in modern marketing is something that you call multi-channel marketing, and that means reaching people and ideally digitally surrounding them across a multitude of channels, not just email, but also social sites and apps, also via text, also via mobile apps, landing pages, and having all of these different pieces, all these different marketing vehicles working together in symphony to have sort of an integrated effect. And the result is that you can break past that 20% that you get with email alone, best case. You can get to 80 or 90% by connecting with your existing patients in the ways that they actually want to be reached. And this is another benefit of the fact that they're existing patients, which is that you have many ways to reach them. With anonymous people who you haven't met with, you don't have their mobile number. You can't text them. You're not able to reach them through list retargeting on Facebook or Instagram. But with your existing patients whose contact information you have, you can do that. And so Gartner has some good research that says lead gen campaigns, and that's getting people to raise their hand and respond to campaigns, lead generation campaigns that integrate multiple digital channels outperform single or dual channel campaigns by 300%. And we've done internal research on our own and have shown actually even better and even greater multiple than that of the ability to reach beyond just email alone. So this is a very important concept, and when you think about how you're going to be spending your energy, or how your person who's on point or your consultant who's outside the business is focused on marketing, thinking about the different channels, and are we budget allocated, and are we prepared to reach people across multiple channels and have all those channels working together and supporting each other. Okay, so I've just talked a lot of doom and gloom, and I've thrown a lot of legacy tactics under the bus and shown you why they're not as good as they ought to be, or why it might be time to grow past them. And now what I want to do is show you a peek at how you actually implement this stuff in a way that does work. So I'm going to try and change the tone here a little bit to make this more constructive. So first, it's important to understand what you're getting into with marketing and doing patient marketing well. It's not necessarily, as I mentioned before, not necessarily something that a person who is steeped in practice management is going to have all the tools for. So this is just a little taste. These are like the beginner step one best practices that people have to be good at to do it well. Things like crafting subject lines that work, and there's a lot of specific best practices just within email subject lines to know about. Understanding how many offers should be in any one email or campaign that's going out. Understanding all of the issues surrounding email deliverability and deliverability on other channels. Understanding what responsive design is, which has to do with, okay, I'm creating a marketing asset or part of a campaign, and I want it to be viewable and look really nice when someone's opening up on their desktop, or looking at it on their iPad, or looking at it on their tiny mobile phone. And understanding how to do that and all the best practices around that is important if you want that result, and that result is important to get business results. Using the right imagery, figuring out the best times of day and the best days of the week to send emails and do other campaign activities. Fonts and other aspects of design are also really important, and how you put together calls to action to get people to respond is also very important. So these are things that, even just at a beginner level, have to be well understood, and you have to have experience with in order to do it well. Let's talk about email marketing for a second. So some of the things that we're trying to show here is that you really do need to have emails taking on your brand. It's one thing to pick a nice little template from a list or a gallery that from some tool that you might be using, but making it kind of an extension of your practice and an extension of the experience that patients have when they walk into your office is something that's very critical. Having the right calls to action at the bottom, also very critical. Making sure that you've got everything lined up in terms of what the kind of the need or the health concern is that the offer is supposed to address, lines up with who that targeted group of individuals is that you're trying to get it to, and making sure that it's relevant, and then a whole host of other things concerning how to structure these emails, the copywriting, the tone, where the images should go, where they shouldn't go, and then ultimately giving people the means to respond. So all very important. And again, making sure that it works on mobile devices, because increasingly the majority of these types of promotions and campaign assets are being viewed on very small screens that have very different characteristics than if you're looking at it on a laptop. Okay, so intermediate best practices. This is when you start doing things like using landing pages, structured landing pages that are used to capture interest, and also things like targeted social ads. So with landing pages, you're wanting to, obviously stick to the best performing norms around different kinds of calls to action, capturing interest in the right way through the use of forms, making sure that you're, again, branding your practice appropriately and making sure that it feels connected with what you're doing in email, what you're doing in the mobile app, and what's happening even inside the space of your office. Does that all feel like one cohesive, connected experience? Again, taking the right opportunities to educate people on the promoted or on the service that you're promoting, and the health concerns that it talks about, and potentially more information about what they need to understand about those health concerns. And then potentially even leveraging video to give people an even closer look, because if they're hitting a landing page, they're probably coming from an email, maybe they're coming from a social ad, maybe they're coming from a text promotion. When they're landing there, you want to give them a little bit more that they can learn so that they do end up fully responding to that campaign. Then you've got things like targeted social ads. There's a lot, this is a whole world of advertising that is still evolving very rapidly. You can't just use the same old banner ads that worked a few years ago. They don't necessarily work in the same way. You've got to separate out all the text and the offer information from the imagery. You've got to make sure you have very relevant content and that you're able to target people the right way. Social networks tend to have a lot more restrictions around what is permissible and what's acceptable on their platforms. And understanding how to navigate that is something that will determine if people see your ad or they don't. You also want to focus in on one offer, because very often a lot of these people are using these tools exclusively on mobile apps, and so they've got a smaller amount of space, and so you've got a fraction of a moment to really hit them with something compelling. And then again, of course, figuring out how landing pages work with that. When people respond to something through a social ad, where do they actually wind up, and how do you make that into a cohesive experience? Here's a few examples. Just some things to think about here is, if you think about your patients who have put their care in your hands and trust you, how are they using social media today? Are they using Facebook? Are they using Instagram? How are they accessing those social networks? And being able to deliver offers and campaigns in a targeted way that feels like you were invited to the party as opposed to just showing up there unannounced, is something that's a lot easier said than done. And so these are things to think about, and things that expertise is needed in order to do well. Just moving on to web landing pages. I've referenced these a lot. So the web landing pages are basically where people land when they're encountering something that you're promoting to them. And so that initial promotion may happen through text, it may happen through email, it may happen through social ads, or maybe even just organic social posting or some other means. This is where they wind up. They find out a little bit more. The offer is reiterated, and then you can capture their information. And you want to capture the right information so that you can turn that into a consultation as quickly as possible without having to do a ton of back and forth with the patient in order to get it scheduled. So these are just a couple examples. And then once you get to sort of the advanced level, you've got things like being able to use what we call conversational marketing. And so what this is for us is a very personalized, automated method of engaging in really something that feels like a conversation, where there's a back and forth and a dialogue with patients, where they can learn more. It's partly an educational process, but it's also finding out about their needs, their interests, so that you can personalize what it is that you're recommending to them, again, in an automated way, but also capturing data that becomes very valuable for future campaigns and marketing efforts that you're running, because you can target better since you're able to target by interest or concern. And so this again deals with the right kinds of calls to action, The ability to personalize. Navigation becomes very important because a lot of times this is happening through a customized mobile app. It does need to be informative and really deliver on the value prop of spending time with an app when there are millions to choose from. Convenience is really important, and for you, really being able to track results is something that is critically important. So let's look at some examples of that. This is an example of a conversation gallery that many of our customers are using. So this is an app that basically lets patients explore different kinds of health concerns, be able to tap into one and start a conversation that is, as I mentioned, a dialogue of a few questions that are answered, and then tailored content being pushed in a very familiar kind of mobile message format through the app. And that's something that's really powerful because it's not only promoting a procedure or a means to promote a procedure, but it's also getting that patient more educated and getting them educated through dialogue in a way that is, for a lot of people, really easy to digest. And so just anecdotally, I can tell you that response rate, if you think about response to campaigns, so a response may happen to an email, a response may happen to a social ad. The percentage of people who actually respond to these different channels is, that's an important signal of what kind of results you might get. And what I can tell you is that with this conversational technique, that the response rate is through the roof compared to all other channels. So this is something that's really important. This is a very new innovation within the world of marketing universally, not just aesthetic healthcare. So it's something that's definitely worth learning about a little bit more. Some of this conversational capability can also be delivered through text and SMS. And that's important in case people don't have the app yet, or maybe they don't want it, or they just have a preference for text. You can still have that dialogue with them in the way that is convenient for them. And then just a little more detail on that. So here's an example of some information being delivered and promoted through text. Of course, giving people the ability to opt out or to find help on how to do different things within their messaging app. And then there's also push notifications. So any good mobile app, whether you have your own or whether you're using one from an outside provider, should be alerting people when there's some new information about either a promotion or some news with your practice or something that might be educationally interesting to them. And I just wanted to show a quick example. So this is a practice who we've been working with for fresh dermatology. And they started using targeted branded emails, so like some of the examples that I showed you, and doing that in concert with text marketing, push notifications, targeted social ads, the right kinds of web landing pages, and automated conversational marketing via the app that I showed you. And what they've seen, in their words, is existing patients coming in for more procedures. They booked 21 new appointment requests in the first month of starting to do things according to the playbook that I've just run through. And they got 6 of those within the first 48 hours. And that's really important because you can dollarize that. So if you think about the average price of one of these procedures, maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's $500, maybe it's $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. And so you multiply that by 21, and that's what you call return on investment in marketing. Assuming you're not spending through the roof to do this, it's not necessary to spend all that much money to accomplish all the complicated stuff that I just showed you. But if you look at the return, basically for every dollar that they're putting into marketing, they're getting many more dollars back in this case. The other thing that's a benefit here that's not as quantifiable is that they're building better relationships with their patients. So it's not just about their wallet. It's about the human connection. Your practice is providing healthcare, and by having better relationships with those patients, you're giving them more reasons to put more of their care in your hands. And that's the kind of thing that makes practices thrive. You're an expert in that, not me, but it's something that we hear over and over and over again. And that ties back to, again, the value of not trying to do all of this yourself, finding the right partner to be able to do it on your behalf in the way that you want and in the way that's going to drive the best results. And so I love this quote, which is, I want my staff taking care of patients, not marketing to them. And that goes back to the electrician and doing plumbing analogy that I used before. That's why you have your staff there, to serve your patients, to make the practice run smoothly. Marketing isn't and shouldn't necessarily be part of what they're doing. And so that's another kind of soft benefit that comes out of all this. So that's what I have for you today. I wanted to end on an actual real world example. We have many more of those, probably 15 plus more of those that I can share. And happy to talk with anyone who's listening on the line in more detail and share what we know. We love to talk about this. We're passionate about patient marketing, marketing to your existing patients, because we just see over and over and over again that it unlocks so much value for practices and their patients. This is my email address on the screen, and please feel free to shoot me a note anytime. And I think we were going to open it up to a little bit of Q&A at this point.
Yes, and thank you so much, Adam. That was really great. And we do have some questions coming in, and did want to remind people that if you had any questions, you can type them into the question box or the chat box on the right side of the screen. One question that came in is from people who have not heard a lot about conversational marketing more. How can they research that further and learn more about it?
Yeah, so there are resources that are out there around in the marketing world, in the world of my peers. A lot of people call this chatbots, and so if you do a search for chatbots, you'll see a lot of research about this emerging technology where you've got an automated system that's able to ask and answer questions through kind of a messaging interface. One of the best examples of this is there are a few brands that are now big brands, like household name brands, that are starting to use Facebook Messenger as a chatbot. One example that I know of is Whole Foods has a messenger capability within Facebook where you can ask Whole Foods for recipes, and they'll send you recipes back. So you can say, hey, I'm looking at making a barbecue chicken recipe tonight. What do you have? And it'll send you back some recommendations based on a bunch of different data and how you phrase the question. So chatbot technology is something that there's a lot of excitement around and a lot of hope and potential around within the overall marketing business. We approach it in a way that is more specific to the aesthetic healthcare industry. And so if you want to see that up close and see how it works with within the context of an aesthetic practice, educating its patients, answering questions, and sharing information about available procedures, that's something that we could give you an up-close demo of and share what we know in terms of what we've seen happening in terms of both the patient response to it and how the practices are able to leverage it.
Great, and we had another question having to do with permissions for email and texting. And one of the attendees was wondering, what is the typical percentage of a database that you should be able to or typically able to get permission for these kind of communications?
Yeah, so that can vary from practice to practice. So different practices handle it different ways. There are sort of playbooks and recommended best practices for what to do when you're actually collecting the the information from patients, and I believe some of the EMR and EHR and CRM platforms that are out there even provide you with some guidance on what to what to do when you're capturing that information in terms of explicitly asking people for their permission, or if they're signing up online, putting the right sort of check boxes and agreements and things like that in place, or letting them opt out from the get-go. And so a lot of that tends to happen when you're first capturing that information. There are also, in the backdrop of this is sort of the regulatory environment. So you've got issues like HIPAA, and you've got general regulatory and compliance standards around email marketing, and then a separate set of standards around text marketing. With the social platforms, it tends to be more self-regulated by the platforms themselves. So Facebook has their own rules, and they have some separate rules for Instagram. And so the answer is there is no one answer. It is something that is less to be known and more to be navigated. And that's something that we've had a lot of experience with, and I'm happy to share more offline. It really does depend on your own individual situation, though, and the relationship that you have with their patients, what their expectations are, and what steps you took when you first captured that contact information.
And I had a question that had more to do a little bit with marketing messages, where if you're looking to reach an audience that is a little bit wary of things like needles and injectables, are there things that can put them more at ease or encourage them to come research?
Yeah, so I think that there, just as a marketer, there's a few things that that you can do. One is if people are wary of something, what you want to do is really think hard about what it is that is sort of the turnoff for them. What is it that they fear, and do you have anything in your in your own knowledge, or maybe it's from a manufacturer that has some information that maybe some of the preconceptions might be based on myths, and so do you have any myth busting material that you might be able to share? And a lot of times, in some cases, it's good to actually to lead with those with sort of that myth busting. And so, for example, if someone has a fear about injectables or things like that, maybe there's something that's kind of informational instead of just promotional that you might be able to share with them, like why Botox hurts a lot less than it used to, or why this particular procedure doesn't hurt 10 years after it was started, or something like that. If you can attack those head on, and you have sort of a shorthand compelling argument as to why they shouldn't believe that, or why it might be a misperception, then you can actually lead with that. The other thing that you can do is you can tell people about a range of different procedures or options that might address the same health concern. And what you can do is compare them, compare different advantages and disadvantages. And then, it's not a matter of should I do this or not, it's a matter of, well, which one is best for me? And that can be a useful technique in certain situations as well. But I find that, if people have myths or misperceptions about something, that's, any product or service, in many cases, it can be very helpful to address those head on, and just, bust them right from the get-go. That's based on my experience as a marketer.
Great. And I have a couple more questions for you, but I did have a few people asked about how they could get a copy of this presentation for staff members who weren't able to attend. And so I just, before some people are signing off, wanted to make sure ever anew, this will be up on medestheticsmagazine.com/webinar, and it will be up within a day or two so people can come back and view it or share it with their other staff members. And then another question that came in from one of the attendees was, what size database do you think you would need before you start looking at really outsourcing and investing in some of this kind of marketing?
Yeah, we've seen practices be successful with what I showed you here, with as few as 1,000 database contacts. One thing that's important though is that, you know, it's one thing to have a database, but you really do need to make sure that that the contacts in the database are your patients, because if it's people who don't know you, if maybe they're, you know, someone who's signed up for an event or something like that and they're not really all that familiar with you, or maybe, you know, maybe you had a way of purchasing a list from someone locally as a way to kind of jumpstart the practice, and they don't really know you, they don't have a relationship with you, it's not going to be as effective. But if you have, you know, as few as I would say 1,000 or so people who are actual patients of yours and know you and trust you as a patient would, then you can see some pretty significant results just from that.
Wonderful. And I had one last question. When you had talked a little bit about the email marketing and social media, what are some of the best times or days to target people with email blast campaigns or social media marketing?
It really varies, and we see that, and there's differences between email and social. So what's happening with sort of targeted social ads, you might be talking about the person who asked the question may be talking about when's the best time to post online. I don't have the stats in front of me, and I don't want to just guess blindly, but there are some benchmark stats out there in terms of when's the best time to post on different social networks. And I think there's actually some differences between when you want to post on Instagram versus Facebook versus Twitter if you have followers there. I don't have those stats in front of me, but there are definitely ideal times of day and days of the week that you want to post. For email, I don't have those in front of me either. If you want to send me an email at the address over here, I can send you that, and I can actually send you some pretty detailed information about when is the best one of the best times and best days of the week for certain categories of products and services to be emailed about. I'm happy to share that.
Terrific. And if there are any questions that are still coming in or have come in that we didn't get to, we will be sharing those. We'll make sure that Adam has a chance to reach out to you and get you an answer. But we want to thank you guys so much for attending, and thank you so much, Adam, for the great presentation. And as I mentioned,
thank you, Inga.
And this will be up on our website within a couple days, so just feel free to come and share this with your staff members.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a good day.